Welcome to the Futurist Mindset. My name is Tessa. I'm here to introduce you to Reagan Rodriguez. Reagan is a futurist who teaches stratosphere wealthy legacy families how to become impact investors. Hi, Reagan. How are you?
Well, I am doing awesome this morning and ready to get started. Good to see you as well. How have you been, Tessa?
Excellent, excellent. And I'm excited to learn about today's topic, honestly.
So am I, because you bring up a good point. It's a learning experience for all of us, and that's why we're doing this talk. What happened was maybe about 3, 4 weeks ago, a broker that's over on the West Coast, well, I call it the West Coast. If you're not on East Coast time, and you're on Pacific Standard Time, I consider you on the West Coast. So this person that's on a different time zone said, I've got someone I'd like to refer you to. So from there, I spoke with Dr. Sarala, and we're talking a lot about the environment. We have a similar major in sustainable energy science. So we started talking about that and our passion for the environment. From there, I started telling her about trees and what they do in terms of helping the environment, which she clearly knows about. And then she starts telling me about her big vision and involving algae, which I wasn't that familiar with. And so then she begins to tell me more about it. And I'm very intrigued. From there, you guys will notice that Jordan is on the line. Jordan is an intern of mine that is going to be going on as a sophomore at Carnegie Mellon, correct, Jordan? And you
Oh,
can,
my
yeah,
junior year.
your junior year. Got you. You're going to be going on your junior year. Forgot, you're right. It's quite the difference there, right? So, Jordan, you and I were talking, and we were talking about algae, and I was mentioning to him, maybe this can be something that we can incorporate into my business plan with Worthy Futures. And then I said to Jordan, hey, I've got an idea. Maybe you and I can get on my weekly podcast and we can talk about algae. And I see Jordan kind of smile. And of course, I was thinking he's like me. He was flattered that he's going to be on TV, right? And that wasn't what his smile was about. He's like, dude, what do I know about algae other than a few Google searches? And what he really said was, he's like, look, people are watching this online. I don't want to just quote something I read in this article or something else I read in this. I want this to be exact. And then I thought, well, you're right. Why don't we bring in the expert? And, I mentioned that somebody on the West Coast had referred me to Sarah. Actually, she knows somebody named Dr. Raj, and Dr. Raj is a neurosurgeon. And the neurosurgeon, Dr. Raj, is the one that referred us to Sarala. So I even asked Raj if he wanted to talk on this. And he says, look, Regan, when it comes to neurosurgery, that's what I know about. But when it comes to algae and the event, let's stick to the expert. So with all that being said, Dr. Sarala, I know that it's 8 a.m. for us here on the east coast of Florida. It's 8 p.m. for you in Malaysia. So how are you doing on this Friday evening, Dr. Sarala?
I would say shalom to everybody, Friday.
Shalom, yes.
And it's always exciting to talk about the environment algae for me, even though it's 8 p.m. So I don't need a glass of wine or coffee, but if you start getting excited about the environment, my energy level goes up. So how can I carry on in this subject?
Well, and Jordan, you're welcome to get off of mute if you also, because I might pick on you with some questions. As I mentioned, Sarala, Jordan and I were just talking, and I just mentioned to him what a great conversation you and I had and how I wanted to add this. And the reason why I want to add it is I think I had mentioned to you that growing trees is not as simple as just planting a seed and watch it grow. I am going to have to hire farmers. They do have to trim. They do have to cut around there. There is something to it. And you had mentioned to me, well, with algae, it's just going to grow like a weed. And all you really need is just kind of water. And then from there, I said, oh my goodness, here in the US, although land is very expensive, you can look at wetlands. And then she said, Regan, this is kind of what I did my study on. So, first question, talk about wetlands. Let's assume I find a property that's very cheap. I'm either going to say in Central Florida or maybe Georgia. I've seen some land that's very cheap there. What would you do with an area that has wetlands?
What I will do is I will, when it comes to algae, there's microalgae and macroalgae. The micro are the ones that you see under microscope, and the macro is the one you can see visually. It's like the kelp. The kelp is an algae, but you can see that. But the algae that we work on in the biofuel is you see it under microscope, like the spirulina that you eat. It's so small, you only can see under microscope. So for a site, I would go there, I will see but physically what is growing there, the large ones, and do some samples to see what is growing there in the water. I would also do some journal research because America is not new land, and you will have a lot of scientific and national geographic information. So from that research, you will know what is endemic to the place. And Americans don't eat algae that much. That's what I was told by my American friends and relatives. But we have been taught by the Japanese to consume more algae. So algae now is part of our staple in the sense like people would buy, instead of buying chemical vitamins, they buy spirulina instead. And spirulina is actually quite common in fresh water, and you can find them all over the world, including in America. So, but we don't know which species it is. So what we can also do is if you have a land with a lot of water, I would take the water back home and try to culture some algae in the water. So one is go there, see what is there physically, big and small, take samples back, test the water, grow my own culture in the lab and see if it grows. So based on that, then it depends on how much algae you want to grow and which one you want to grow. Do you want to grow algae for food, or do you want to grow algae for biofuels? Or you want to grow algae to feed fish and crawfish? Because there's lots of crawfish and other kinds of animals that eat algae in your water. So it all depends on, okay, what is available, what can we grow, what we're going to use it for. But Reagan, I'm an environmentalist.
Yes, me too.
So when I started growing algae, it was actually to clean the water so that the industry's agriculture waste was not polluting our rivers and lakes. So these algae are little single cell animals, plants that actually work for us. So it was like a eureka moment, no? Oh, wow, these little ones can actually clean up the water for me so that when it comes out, all the heavy nutrients are gone.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what you're going to use it for. So that's how the work with Dr. Raj and me started, because they were throwing heavy nutrients into the river and the lakes, and we found that the algae would pick up the nutrients, convert it to lipid, and guess what? The eureka moment was we could use the lipid for biofuels. It just happened like that. So it's an adventure, Reagan. It's an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thank you for that, Dr. Sarala. A question I'm also wanting to ask is in regards to carbon credits. And the reason why, and I know you and I think very similarly in the sense that we're not as money motivated, if you will, right? However, all of this takes money. And as you know, which is why you were referred to me, I like projects that are in sustainable energy, things that are for the environment. And the challenge with those projects is that it takes a while before there's profitability. I'm thinking of like a wind farm, right? Wind turbines cost a lot of money. Similar to my project with my trees, land costs money. So you got to buy land first, right? So th that's the good thing about carbon credits. I have found other ways to still bring profitability in, whether it's that way or taking care of the investors by giving them tokens. So it's interesting. Right before I got on, it was at 7:45 a.m. I was emailing Robert Tessa, who you and I spoke with, that will be on this week's uh, podcast,
Yes.
and we were talking about NFTs. And he said, Regan, maybe if people invest in, let's say, this algae, right, they can get some form of NFTs. And I'm like, okay, you're on to something. And at that point, it was now like 7:53. And I'm like, I got to go. I got a Zoom meeting in a few minutes and I got to prepare for it. We'll talk later. So, on that note, you'll probably see this as well. Talk to us about carbon credits, what you've noticed about that, and how they measure that.
I think for carbon credits, people use trees because trees are the known capture for CO2.
They are.
But what I triggered you on the other day is algae captures carbon as well. Every
Yes,
one
more
kg
so.
of every 1 kg of algae captures 2 kg of carbon, and that's a lot. And that's a lot. And also algae doubles up in its mass every third day. So if I have 1 kg today, on my third day I have 2 kg. On the next third day I have 4 kg. So can you imagine how much it will capture?
Yeah.
But we don't have a protocol for algae in the carbon market yet. So it's like, how do we now come up with a protocol to show these guys, hey guys, trees are big, they capture, but algae are actually small trees, miniature, but they're more efficient. And the research in Serbia showed that algae is 10 to 50 times more efficient than trees. How exciting.
I didn't know. I assumed that there is an initiative on carbon credits. You're sure that as of right now there isn't on algae?
Sorry, my dog is barking.
Oh, I didn't even hear it. It's okay. See, I was more I didn't hear it. Yes, you're sure about that they don't offer carbon credits?
The current protocols for carbon from my research, is mostly trees. It's mostly tree work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is that we're still a little ways away from being able to get carbon credits from algae, and it might be something, it's an initiative I'll just have to start, is what I'm kind of hearing.
Basically, the carbon market has recognized trees, but they have not recognized, because
Algae.
trees capture and store. So like your trees that you plant can store carbon for 10 years, 20 years. Yeah. Algae can also store, depending on what you use the algae next for. So are we going to use the algae for some chemical compound or to make fuel? If it's fuel, then it's going back into the system. But if you're going to keep the algae as part of the ecosystem, then it's a storage as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Jordan, you've been really good on the listening end of things. I know that you and I talked quite a bit about this industry a few days ago. Do you have any questions or any comments you want to mention about this industry, or even Dr. Sarala's business plan that I know you had a chance to review?
Yes, actually, that was the perfect timing because that's where I wanted to ask a question. And so, from my understanding, it's when we are harvesting the tree or when we're harvesting the algae to do something else with it, depending on what we do with the algae or the tree, this is what determines whether we'll be able to use it as carbon credits or not. Is that how it works?
It sounds like from what Dr. Sarala said is that right now they don't have a program to be able to offer carbon credits. So that's why I said it doesn't mean that I can't start an initiative on that or get something going. Tessa, I saw your face kind of move. Were you going to add something to that?
No, I was just saying that I see it when I look. There's it, like you said, signed. They're in the process of signing so that some
Okay.
companies can get carbon credits for the algae, but it's in works. So it doesn't
It's
look
in
like
the
it's
works.
yeah. So it looks like it's coming. Well, like everything Reagan does, he's a futurist, so he's
I was
thinking
just
ahead
about
of
to say that.
time.
Yeah. Thank you. I was going to say, pun is intended here. This is the Futurist Mindset Show. So this is kind of cool. We'll have this recorded on, you know, today's August. Yeah. We'll see what happens, right? In
Right?
regards to that. I'm glad
Yes.
you Googled that and found that out.
Yes.
Jordan, anything else you want to ask in regards to that, buddy?
No, for now that's it.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Sarala, anything you want to add on that? Because I think you were clear, you are educated in this, as you shared with us. This is the carbon credits is not quite there yet. And I again want to add this to our land where we will have our trees. What else would you like to add to this, Dr. Sarala?
Like what Tessa said, you're a futurist. You pioneer ahead of everybody else. And in some ways, I'm also doing similar things,
Yes, you
trying
are.
to find sustainable energy from algae, and trying to clean up the industry at the same time. So we have to make the change in the protocols and in the system as we go ahead.
Okay.
You're being
Thank
a
you. Thank
futurist
you.
as well.
I'm sorry, what was that, Tessa?
I said she's a futurist as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, she is. She is. And look, I don't think we need to make this call much longer than what it is. I wanted to give
Cool.
people an overview on an industry that I'm learning about as well. And Dr. Sarala is not quite a client yet of ours. I've looked at her business plan. We're working things out. I think the world of her. I enjoy our conversations. She's educated me on something I didn't know. And I think just before we wrap up, do you want to talk briefly, Sarala, on your initiative that you're doing with algae in regards to biofuel and maybe share a little bit more of the bigger vision within your business plan? I think that's a good way to wrap up.
We are actually collecting agricultural waste, and the biggest industry here is the palm oil. So we have palm oil
Yes.
coming out. So for a long time, they were just cleaning it and putting it back in the river. So it was like a lot of effort and very little use. So one day, a few of us started working, and I got a formulation where we could actually grow some algae in the affluent because it's nutrient rich and it's also nourishing. So we tested a few algae and we found that the one species was growing very well and it was converting it to lipids. And it was like 79% lipids. So every single cell had 80 to 70% lipids. That's a lot of fat cells. And they grew very fast. And we did some more tests and found that these lipids can be converted to diesel and further converted to aviation fuel. So if this pathway works, it's a game changer. We basically have fuel growing from trees. So we need to move this, and I need lots of people like you guys to help pave the legal part and the laws and the financial part as well. so that we can move ahead.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Conversations like this, I enjoy. What a great way for me to begin my Friday. Even for you, Tessa, this is a little early for you too today, right? What a great way to get started. I like this. And I think it's a good way to kind of conclude. Go for it, Tessa.
All right. Well, as you all know, we're here on Fridays at noon. So if you want to get reminded, you love the content that you're hearing about environmental projects and just how we're changing the world, you can hit the bell to get reminders. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you all.